Welcome to Click for IB Biology. We're looking at diversity and organisms, and we're going to take a closer look at some of the speciation difficulties which we began to develop in the first video. So this is the second video in our diversities and organisms study. There's a blank PDF of this presentation down in the description. You can download that and annotate that with your own notes, and then at the end take the 10-question quiz and check out your answers to secure your learning. Okay, so let's take a look at speciation difficulties, and we're going to be focusing here on the difficulties associated with establishing the biological species definition, concept rather, and its reproductive isolation. And you've probably been looking at this already. We're aware of the speciation event in the group which includes the chimpanzees and bonobos, which is the genus Pan. And you can see the two species here following the binomial naming system of Pan troglodytes, and over here Pan paniscus is over here like this. And the diagram here is a phylogenetic diagram, which is indicating with the fork here a speciation event at that point there. The last common ancestor in the line is here. And although there may have been genetic allele frequency changes as we move through time from the last common ancestor to the species event, that evolution and change in allele frequencies did not result in a splitting event, which we call speciation. However, studies tend to suggest that such an event occurred by one account. This occurred approximately 1.8 million years ago, and this was published in a 2020 study. And the interesting part of this study was that this was able to correlate closely with the allopatric speciation event, which was the formation of the Congo River. So let's just draw a simple diagram here of the original Pan population, the introduction of the Congo River, creating populations A and B. Population A would be the chimpanzee as we know it today, which is isolated from what would then become the bonobos chimpanzee, another species, which is population B here, and the physical geographic barrier was, of course, the Congo. So that study suggested that the speciation event was around about 1.8 million years ago. Another earlier study used mitochondrial DNA and suggested that perhaps it was only somewhere around about half a million years ago to 800,000 years ago. So there's a bit of uncertainty around the date. However, the isolation event did occur. Now, according to the theory of biological species, what then happened is that with the allopatric isolation, the speciation event, the separation meant that the chimps and the bonobos have been accumulating their own mutations and allele frequency changes as they become distinct species. However, we can see from the images shown here and here that this would effectively pass any attempt at morphological characterization of two species, given the significant difference in body forms. The chimpanzee is much larger, more robust animal. The bonobos is lighter colored and smaller. Ecologically, they are in two very distinct areas. Chimpanzees are in variable forest structure, whereas the bonobos are in tropical rainforests. And so we have the ecological niche definition is well supported here. Genetic studies, as I've previously indicated, allow us to establish that phylogenetically, through genetics and proteins, that these are two distinct species. But the challenge would remain that in the biological species definition, that the isolation means that these are separate populations, because a hybrid would be infertile, but insofar as I'm aware, no hybridization has taken place between chimpanzees and bonobos, largely because this would be considered an unethical practice, especially with such intelligent animals. Far away from the challenges of the ape evolutionary tree, there are other types of challenge to speciation event that we haven't mentioned, and one of those is HGT, which stands for horizontal gene transfer. And this is actually something which we would find between bacteria. So it's understood that different species of bacteria can form tubular extensions which allow them to connect their cytoplasm. And through these extensions, it's possible for genes to be exchanged, most ordinarily in the form of plasmids. Nevertheless, these are formed from DNA, and so we have these horizontal gene transfers which would disrupt the image of any branching tree as Darwin drew it, and whilst we might have the classic genetic tree looking like this, we need to accommodate this certainly in these organisms at the level of bacteria with perhaps two trees, a kind of more horizontal gene transfer like this. But I do stress that this is largely confined to bacterial groups with these horizontal transfers. So our tree would look more like this rather than this. So these are some challenges to the species concepts that we have in the biological species definition. The next link to the next video is now showing, in which we look at diversity and chromosome number. There's the chance to subscribe to the channel. Much appreciated, folks. And there's the playlist to all our diversity videos for this particular part of the course.